Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Cure for the Common Game. Today is day number 81 of my 100 Days of Magic. Although I guess it probably should be 100 Days of EDH. Anyway, today we're going to look at Champions of Kamigawa and what it has given the Commander format. Champions was released in October of 2004, had 306 cards, 88 rares, 88 uncommons, 110 common, and 20 basic lands. And this was a very precarious time for any Magic set. Now, the Kamigawa block is a very polarizing block amongst the Magic community, but it came at a time right in between Mirrodin block and Time Spiral block. So those were two powerhouse blocks, and feelings one way or another over Kamigawa, but generally it's not regarded as one of the greatest blocks, although it's got a lot that it gave our format. So let's take a look. Cage of Hands. Cage of Hands is, it's your basic pacifism effect. However, due to the rise in popularity of Enchantress style decks, the ability to return it to your hand to get that recast trigger, or maybe if a better target comes out, kind of makes it rise above the rest. 8.5 tails. As usual, I do all of the legendary creatures in a set. Now, the Kamigawa block had a lot. I think we have 90-something cards to talk about today. And there were quite a few legends. It was a big theme. All of the rare creatures from the set were legendary. And this one, a Fox Cleric. 2 mana, 2/2. And you can, target opponent permanent you control gains protection from white. And then you can turn something white. Pretty neat. I have not personally built him yet. Well, I don't know. There's a lot of these I have built, and a lot of them I haven't built yet. Now, as you know, my goal is, of course, to build them all, and I'll eventually get to them. I will comment on the ones that I've already built. This was a set that gave us Ghostly Prison. Y'all know I hate the word staple for EDH because I think every deck, every commander wants something different. But I find that, well, all my Ghostly Prisons that I own are in decks. So it's a great card. Helps to steer combat away from you. I like it. Hikari, Twilight Guardian. It's 5 mana, 4/4 flying. That used to be kind of the old standard. Whenever you play a Spirit or Arcane spell, you can essentially blink him out of the game, and he comes back at the end of turn. Now, Kamigawa had a huge Spirit and Arcane theme. All colors took part in Spirits and Arcanes. Arcane was a subtype of Instant and Sorcery, and it had little things here and there. Splice was a big thing. Hold the Line. Now, while this card, I don't know that. I actually have no evidence of anyone besides me ever casting this card. But number one, nobody ever sees it coming. Half the people don't even know it exists. But it feels really good to declare blocks and then hold the line. Oh, it's so good. Nobody ever sees it coming. It's a blowout. Izamaru, Hound of Kanda is, at the time, it was the cheapest legendary creature ever printed. Now it's kind of tied with Kytheon, but 1 mana, 2/2 legend. A lot of people just build this for straight aggro because you're guaranteed your commander on turn 1, and turn 2, if you get a Bone Splitter, you're swinging in for 4. There are other ways to build it, but that seems to be the most popular way. Kitsune Mystic. These are called flip cards, and we start with this side up, and you can always tell which side is up because of the casting cost. So it starts off as a 2/3 Fox Wizard for 4 mana. At the end of turn, if it's enchanted by 2 or more enchantments, flip it. And then it becomes Autumn Tail Kitsune Sage. 1 mana : to move around enchantments to other creatures. Now, important to note, it's a legendary creature after it flips, so it is not legal to be a commander because it doesn't start out as a legend. But if you search Gatherer for legendary creatures, this one's going to pop up. Oh, Also, the reason why I chose this one, because there was a bunch of these. There was like a rare cycle and an uncommon cycle. But the reason why I chose this one is, as I said, the rise of Enchantress decks. And the ability to just move those enchantments around is, it's kind of tempting, isn't it? Kanda. Kanda is a prime example of a white bad guy, a mono white bad guy. He's a 7 mana 3/3 vigilant. It's got to be good, right? Bushido 5, and he's indestructible. Bushido is an ability they gave Samurai. Samurai has a presence in the Kamigawa block. As a matter of fact, it's the only place it does. Well, barring changelings. But Bushido is when this creature blocks or becomes block, it gets plus that number to power and toughness until end of turn. So this one, fairly decent because it does have vigilance, so it allows him to attack and possibly get the bonus, or block and get the bonus. But now, if something's got Bushido 5 and is a 3/3, you're probably not blocking it. There's a lot of Voltron that goes on with Kanda. I don't think I've built him yet. I don't know. The Voltron decks seem a lot of times very, very fragile to me. I've done them here and there, but I'm not exactly certain where I'm going to go with Kanda just yet. Masako the Humorless. Now, this is a very clever wording to write an old ability. 2 and a white for a 2/1 legendary human advisor. Hey, she's an advisor, y'all. You can tap her for persistence. And she has flash. This was before that was keyworded. Tapped creatures you control may block as though they were untapped. There's not a lot difference in that wording and your creatures have vigilance. Except, however, it plays a lot differently. There's some cards that we'll talk about, I think, in Betrayers that say all creatures interplay tapped, which sucks for everybody else, but, you don't really care. There was a 5-card cycle of the Miosians. These were legendary spirits, and they all had a couple of things in common. Number one, they were all insanely expensive, and they come into play if you played it from your hand. It got a divinity counter, which kind of isn't great for these being commanders because they're coming into play from the command zone. So that, provides its own set of challenges to work with in the deck. And they all, the second line on all of them say that the Miosian has indestructible as long as it has a divinity counter on it. Now, I believe, if I am not mistaken, that game rules now say that divinity counter equals indestructible. So, and all 5 of them have the remove a divinity counter from it to do something epic in that color's flavor. Like here, you destroy each other creature. Now, what I really, how I want to build these is 5 different proliferate effects, because I would love to reuse that ability, but first I've got to get the creature from the command zone into my hand, and then cast, and then proliferate. And all this while, not dying. But then I would have 5 really close decks, and I'm not sure I'm down with that. Reciprocate. Now, we all got our path and our swords, but this one's a little worse because the creature has to actually hit you. But it does exile it, and it is a 1-mana instant, so while not bad, if somebody accidentally gets too froggy with their bob, it's gone. Reverse the Sands. The reminder text here is absolutely hilarious. 8 mana for a sorcery. Redistribute any number of players' life totals. Each of those players gets a life total back, like you were going to give a player 2 and somebody else none. Now, I don't... This was back when they were, Mirror Universe was the very first one at 6 mana, and then you had to wait a turn to actually swap 2 players' life totals. And they used to think this effect was worth more than we're willing to pay. Because I've never cast this card. I don't know that I've ever put it in a deck, but for commander purposes, having a whole table full of people, we had like 5 last night, and the ability to just, hey, you get this, and you get this, and you get that. It is kind of enjoyable to me. Takino, Samurai General. 6 mana 3/3. We are obviously there was a power level problem in Mirrodin, and it appears they may have somewhat overcorrected here with, the inflation of the casting cost. But anyway, Legendary Human Samurai has Bushido 2, and each other samurai gets +1/+1 for each point of Bushido it has. Now, this is obviously would go in the Kanda deck. Just, Yosei. Speaking of spirits, there was a cycle of legendary rare dragon spirits. And I'm thinking they were all pretty much good. We'll get to them. This is the first of the white one. Yosei, a 5/5 flyer, and when it dies, target player skips their next untap step. And then you get to tap up to 5 of their things. Now, there are ways to just continually get Yosei back and just lock somebody out of the game. While, I don't know, sometimes I'm in that mood, most of the time I'm not, because I try to value the experience of the entire game and, everybody's experience at the game. But there are times when all of us are like, gotta do this. Azami, Lady of Scrolls. Now, she's been reprinted. Had she not, she would have been like crazy expensive. But 5 mana 0/2 Legendary Human Wizard doesn't seem like, but tap an untapped wizard to draw a card. This, was it a couple years ago? Was it 17 or 16? We got those wacky tribes in Commander, and one of them was wizards. Now, I believe that's where she was reprinted, if I'm not mistaken. May have been somewhere different, may have been 13. But anyway, she's a wizard, so you can tap her to draw a card, which, it was not bad. That's worth something right there. I think there's a 1/1 that costs 4 to do that, so I don't know. But she is really powerful in all of the wizard decks, because let's face it, they're all based in blue. But absolutely great art, great card. Gifts Ungiven, so good, it's banned. Now, and I have no connection to the RC or the governing body, but I have been playing Commander EDH for a long time, and here is my, anything I give is just mainly my opinion, but here's my interpretation of why we can't have Gifts Ungiven. As much as I would love it, oh my gosh, it's great. So you get an instant for 4 mana. You search your library for 4 cards with different names, which is supposed to be a drawback when they design the card, but in our format, it's not. Because let's face it, unless you're getting basic lands, you're going to get cards with 4 different names. Target opponent chooses 2 of those cards, and they put 2 in your hand and 2 into the yard, okay? Now, it is so very easy to, in-game, politically manipulate your opponent to getting you the 2 that you want. And then, in a lot of decks, it doesn't even matter. Can you imagine if Muldrotha had access to this? I don't care what you put into the yard and what you put into my hand. It's the same difference. Then it becomes a 4 times more efficient demonic tutor at instant speed. Right? That's why. Hinder. I got a story for y'all. Now, side note, we tried to film some footage last night. I got about an hour and a half in before my battery on my camera died. The battery won't last as long as the memory will, and needless to say, it was a long game. We didn't finish. Probably will not air that video because nobody likes a video with no conclusion. But anyway, Buddy Danny was here, and my story about Hinder here, it's a great card. 1 blue instant, counter target spell. And of course, if it's countered, you get to put it on top or bottom of the owner's library. Now, I'm going to say like 90% of the time, people put it on the bottom. Bury that joker, don't want to see it again. Now, we were playing a big game a couple years ago, and he hindered, I don't even know what my spell was, doesn't even matter. He hindered it, put it on the bottom, and then on his turn, he untapped and tunnel visioned me. I'll get to tunnel vision when we get to that set, but if you can't wait, go Scryfall search it, and it's wow. I mean, he milled me with these 2 cards, the whole deck. Hisoka Minimo Sensei. Also, this had a very feudal Japanese feel to it, I'm sure you've noticed. And some of the names this Tennessee boy has trouble with. So many apologies, just right out front. 4 mana, 1/3 human wizard legend. 3 mana, discard a card, counterspell if it has the same converted mana cost as the discarded card. Now, this makes me want to build I almost said a good, but a decent, and then I was like, so not a good deck, just a deck. But you obviously have to have. How I'm probably going to build it is I need to have every CMC that exists that is legal in mono blue. So, and I wonder if we can go to like the EDH rec and see what the most popular. I wonder if there's a way to search all of the decks in the database and see what the percentage of mana cost are, so you would know what percentage of mana cost to include in your deck. Then we got the 3 mana thing and the discard thing, so we got to draw cards and make mana. Anyway, that sounds complicated. That's probably how I'll build it. I don't know. I may just do, guys with goatees. I've already done beards. Blue robes works. I don't know. Honden. Now, I think I've only got one Honden. Yeah, because we didn't go over the white one. They were legendary enchantments, subtype of shrine, and each color got one. They were all uncommon. And at the beginning of your upkeep, you did a thing of that color for each shrine you control. With the blue one here, you drew a card. The white one, you gained life, etc., etc. Now, this obviously encouraged you to, because we had just come off of Fifth Dawn, and Fifth Dawn was encouraging you to play 5 colors. So this kind of fed right into that 5-color deck, because the more shrines you had, the better they were. Think of it. If you had all 5 of them out, you would draw 5 shrines, or 5 cards. Now, this says draw a card for each shrine you control, so, you can play with 4 copies of one, and, yeah, if you get 4 of this one out. No, you can't, because they're legendary. I guess that's why they're legendary. Anyway, that would have been cool. I don't know. So 17-year-old, 15-year-old card, just now. Anyway. Another note. Later on, years from this set, they would make a cycle of artifact shrines. And the shrine was even in the names of the cards, and they didn't make it a subtype of shrine. And I thought this was a very big flavor fail. Yes, it would have made the Hondens more powerful, but it's not like they're in danger of being too powerful anyway. But their reasoning was that they didn't want cards of different types to share a subtype. Yeah, I don't. Apparently there's something there, design-wise, that I am unaware of. Jushi Apprentice is another flipper. 2 mana for a 1/2 human wizard. You spend 3 mana, tap it, and draw a card. If you got 9 or more cards in hand, you flip it. And it flips into Tomoya, the Revealer. So you spend 5 mana and tap it. Target player draws X cards, where X is the number of cards in your hand. So this is a good way to make somebody draw out if you are in a blue-black Underworld Dream style deck. Maybe Nekuzar. Or you can just draw a bunch of cards yourself and kill them with Psychosis Crawl or whatever. But it's decent. Kiga the Tide Star. Now, Kiga is, I'll admit, when I first saw Rider Replication, Kiga was the first card that came to my mind. I just want to steal all the things. It's a 6 mana 5/5 legendary dragon spirit. Of course, it flies. And when it dies, gain control of target creature. Now, there are many ways to loop this back and forth throughout the yard. Obviously, it's blue, so it goes nicely in reanimation decks. Blue-black, it's beautiful. Maloku the Clouded Mirror. Man, this card dominated a couple formats way back. 5 mana for a 2/4 Moonfolk Wizard. I believe the Kamigawa block, I'm not sure if it's home to the Moonfolk, but I believe it's the only place we've actually seen Moonfolk. Now, we've had some random core set things here and there, but I think they were pulled from Kamigawa. But anyway, 2/4 flyer. and you return a land you control its owner's hand to put a blue illusion token into play. It's 1/1 flyer. One thing that we'll notice about the Moonfolk is all the Moonfolk, I believe, are blue, and they focus on you pay a cost and return a land to activate their ability. So they're returning lands. That's kind of their mechanic. Meosion of the Blue, the Seeing Winds. 10 mana, 3/3. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Kamigawa. Of course, it's got the Definity thing, but you can remove the counter to draw a card for each permanent you control. Now, looking at it, you're thinking, well, I'm drawing at least 11 cards because I had to have 10 mana to cast it, and then I have this. We're known to ramp up a little quicker and but if you figure you're drawing 7 or 8 cards, I mean, a new hand to 7, how much is that? There was that blue card printed not too long ago that just said draw 7. I don't know. The Unspeakable is a 9 mana, 6/7 flying trample. Yeah, I think we would get that probably cheaper a little bit today, but for back then, that was not bad. Oh, there were 3 cards that I haven't talked about that they were little instants, and you could play them. I think one of them may have been a sorcery, 1 and 2 mana spells that, through the breach and whatever. And if you played them all in the same turn, you could search for this guy, just put him into play. Doesn't really work that well for Commander, but since if he's the commander, since he starts in the command zone, I think I would probably run it anyway, just in case somebody shuffles him into the deck. But anyway, when he deals combat damage to a player, you may return target arcane card from your graveyard to your hand. Obviously, all 3 of those cards that I mentioned were arcane. So blue arcane is kind of where I would build him at. Uyo the Silent Prophet, another legendary Moonfolk. 4/4 flyer for 6. Now, this time you pay 2 and return 2 lands to copy instant or sorcery, and of course you can choose new copies or targets for it. But this one, I have built Uyo, or at least I've started anyway. I think I've gone the evil take extra turn route, if I'm not mistaken. Because let's face it, if you're going to copy spells, let's copy them and make them matter, right? He Who Hungers. The naming conventions were, really cool. And to be honest with you, we are into black now. So we've been through white, we've been through blue. I don't not like this set. I mean, it was really good. I did live through it in Standard, and it was all the rare legends, or all the rare creatures being legends, was kind of a setback. But you know what? This block added something. It added something to the game. And y'all know it definitely added something to Commander. But anyway, it's a 5 mana, 3/2 flying Spirit for 4 and a black. 1, sack a Spirit. Target opponent reveals their hand, choose a card from it. Of course, they discard it. It has Soul Shift 4. I think we're going to get to a Soul Shift card later on that has the explanation on it, but I will try now from memory. I believe when it dies, you can get another Spirit back that costs 4 or less. Yeah, I'm kind of 60-40 on maybe 50. Yeah, I'm not sure. We'll find out when we get there. Hirobi Deathswail. Now, this one sees some play. This is what I'm talking about. 4 mana, 4/4 flying Spirit. 2 colors, 2 black. Whenever a creature becomes a target of a spell or ability, destroy that creature. There are lots of ways to give, random creatures abilities without killing them, and you just kind of pass those out, and it just kills them. Iname Death Aspect. For 4 and black, you get a legendary spirit. It's a 4/4. When it comes into play, you may search your library for any number of spirits and put them into your graveyard. They led us down this path of black-green, which we'll get there with the green one later, but any number of spirit cards and put them into your graveyard. Now, this is great in a 2 or 3 color deck, obviously. However, I will have to build this as its own commander and 408 decks. It's hard for me to remember if I have or not. Kiku, the Night's Flower. 2 mana, 1/1. Legendary Human Assassin. Double black. 2 generic. 2 black, target creature deals damage to itself equal to its power. Now, this is very, very useful because something about the game, I can't remember what I was listening to, but one of the design articles, so it was probably Morrow or somebody like that, and we as humans, what they have noticed in R&D is we gravitate more towards square statted creatures, 1/1s, 2/2s, 5/5s, stuff like that. I'm guessing it's because it's just easier to process and the aesthetics of it. So square statted creatures are more popular than lopsided ones, 2/5s and whatnot. So it does exist, and this kills a lot of creatures. Kokusho the Evening Star, another awesome Rider replication target. Oh my gosh. I think this did time in the timeout bench for a while. I think it was banned for a little while and it came back. 6 mana, 5/5 flying dragon spirit. When it dies, each opponent loses 5 and you gain life equal to the life lost this way. This is a popular graveyard looping card, especially with Muldrotha. I know my buddy Alan tried to get that off last night. And I think he was. I think we just didn't notice because there was other shenaniganery going on. Kuro Pit Lord. 9 mana, 9/9, and you got to pay 4 specific black during your upkeep or else it dies. But you get to pay a life, and target creature gets -1/-1 to a turn. Now, this may not be that bad with the Horobi, if it becomes a target, it dies. That way you only got to pay 1 life for each creature. But 9 mana is a really big ask, and it's also, noted that we play a 40 life format, so that kind of makes this not as bad as you would think it is, although 9 mana is a bunch. But in mono black, is it really, a bunch? Marrow-Gnar. I believe this is the point where I got to the last video. I started recording this earlier a couple days ago, and it had to stop it right here. But anyway, Marrow-Gnar. 3 colors, black for a 2/3 legendary rat rogue. The rogue part will matter later. All rats have fear, and you sack a rat to put X 1/1 rat tokens into play, where X is the number of rats you control. So this is a great card to put your untap equipments on and to just keep doing it as many times as you can per turn. Now, this is also a popular commander for the Relentless Rat, and the other rat that's any number in your deck. So popular for that. I went just straight tribal rats with it because I had already done a Relentless Rat deck in Grenzo Dungeon Warden, so that's why I did just straight tribal rats. And fear is not nothing. I'm telling you, that's a monster. Fear is they can't be blocked except for artifact or black creatures. They don't really use fear anymore. I think they have intimidate now, because they wanted that ability for other colors. And, blue cards and white cards having fear just kind of thematically didn't sit where they liked it to. So they changed it to intimidate, where it said, their color and artifact. Myojin of the Night's Reach. Now, this is the black Myojin for 8 mana, 5 black, for a 5/2 legendary spirit. I've never pulled this one. I've never owned this card, so the divinity counter clauses. Remove a divinity counter from this. Each opponent discards their hand. That is nasty. Oh my gosh. That's probably one that you may not really even need to proliferate. I mean, I could see wanting to do it a couple of times. However, once you get it into, well, you can get it into play and then bounce it back to your hand with, something. Even if it dies naturally, this is black, we can reanimate it. Or, well, no, we can't reanimate it. Gravedigger it so it goes back to your hand or whatnot. Anyway, I doubt you'd need to do this more than a couple times. It does seem like it wants you. I don't know that with this as the commander, I don't know that this wants a discard deck, because it seems like if you're running a discard deck, by the time you get your, your loop going to where you've actually got this into your hand and cast it. If your discard deck's doing what it's supposed to be doing, they ain't got a hand anyway, and that Divinity activation doesn't really matter. I don't know. There again, massive amounts of black mana is pretty easy to get, kind of like green. Night Dealings is outstanding. By the way, here, let me read it first. 2 colorless, black, black for an enchantment. Whenever a source you control deals damage to another player, put that many theft counters on it. You cast a lightning bolt, you get 3 counters on it. 2 colorless, black, black, also known as Diabolic Tutor mana. You remove X theft counters from this, search your library for a non-land card with converted mana cost of X, reveal it, put it in your hand. This is a reusable tutor, folks, and this is just crazy. It is amazing, but it doesn't see a lot of play. A lot of people do not know this exists. Now, right now is not a good time for enchantments because with the rise of popularity from C18, there's a lot more enchantment hate going on. But this is what I was going to say at the beginning, talking about this card, is that Night Dealings, this is great, okay? Now, if you cover up the art, this could be, and still have the same name, Night Dealings. Why was this not in the Vampire Precon? They could have printed this card along with Vampire art, and it still have fit thematically. Knight of Souls Betrayal. Now, this is one powerhouse legendary enchantment. And what makes it so powerhouse is that it doesn't look like it's much. It had to be legendary because, trust me, you don't want anybody having more than one of these jokers out. 2 colorless, black, black. All creatures get -1/-1. That wreaks havoc. We're obviously building with it so we can actually plan our deck to where we don't have any 1 toughness creatures. But do you know how hard that is? Mana elves and goblins and, Dark Confidant. There's so many cards that just, well, now granted, this is probably exactly half of Elish Norn's last ability. So, but it's 4 mana. Seasoned Perverter of Truth. 3 colorless, black, or 3 generic rather. Black, black for a 6/5. Does not fly. I can't decide if I'm cool with that or not. It doesn't really matter because it just doesn't fly. It kind of looks like it's in midair. But anyway, at the beginning of each player's upkeep, that player loses 2 life and draws 2 cards. I did something remarkably different with Season than anybody else did. The popular way to do this is to do that Underworld Dream style deck. It's not exactly Nekuzar because it's only 1 color, but it's still good. What I did with it is I had a deck building challenge. I was challenged to do 1 deck, and I said, you know what, I'll do 5. And Season was the creme de la creme of that cycle. Every card in the deck started with the letter S. The reason why I chose S for black is because of Swamp. Each one of those 5 decks had the basic land pretty much had to dictate the letter. Thank God there's no, duplicates. F was kind of hard. Ben Aki Hermit. For 4 mana, you get a 1/1 legendary Goblin Shaman. Yeah, okay. You can tap Ben. It deals damage to target attacking creature equal to the number of untapped mountains you control. Untapped, therefore unused. So, I have not tinkered at all with Ben, because it seems like, he's a goblin, he's a shaman, but he didn't really care about either one of those things. He cares about untapped mountains, and I just kind of haven't gotten in that headspace yet. Brothers Yamazaki. Yeah, inverted those 2 letters apparently. The cool part about this card is that they had 2 arts. Same card, same name, but they had 2 arts. Now, For Commander, it doesn't really work for our purposes. I mean, it obviously I'm building a deck with this as the Commander because it's two colorless, two generic, and a red for a 2/1 Bushido one. If there are exactly two permanents named Brothers Yamazaki in play, the legend rule doesn't apply to them. And then they give each other +2/+2, so they become 4/3 hasters. Now, we can't have two. We can't. This doesn't say, you can have two in your deck, which kind of wouldn't make any sense for a normal release anyway, and they wasn't exactly designing for Commander back then. So I've got him, and I think I haven't started building him yet, but I've got both copies, and I've got them both in the same sleeve so that I can be like, sometimes I want the left half and sometimes I want the right half as my Commander. I will probably deal with the artifact versions of copying creatures and, go that route. Yeah. Desperate Ritual. It's an arcane instant for a generic and a red, and it gives you 3 red. Now, on here for many reasons, it also has Splice into Arcane for a generic and a red. And as you play an arcane spell, you can reveal this card from your hand, play its Splice cost, and you add this card's text to the arcane spell that you cast in the first place. Now, that seems really, really cool. But I think in practice, it wasn't. I don't think that we got as good of Splice cards. I think the mechanic was fine. It was not exceptional because we didn't have cards that broke it. Now, Desperate Ritual here saw a ton of play, but that was just because we were about to go into a block to, break Dragonstorm. We had Dragonstorm a couple sets back, and then we had Seething Song and the Mirrodin block, and then we're going to get another one in Cold Snap, and all the pieces are going to come together, and it was a perfect storm. Pun very much intended. Godo Bandit Warlord. 5 generic and a red for a 3/3 legendary human barbarian. Now, when Godo comes into play, you search your library for an equipment card, put it into play. Okay? And when Godo attacks for the first time, you untap it, and all samurai you control. After this phase, you get an additional combat phase. Godo's amazing. By the way, he's got his own personal weapon. But the problem that I'm going to have with building Godo is I am limited to, obviously I want tribal samurai, but I'm limited to red tribal samurai. So this is the only set that has them. Yeah, I can probably cheat again using changelings, but there aren't that many of those either. So, Kiki Jiki, Magic Breaker. Yeah, I said Magic Breaker, not Mirror Breaker. 2 red for a 2/2 haste, and it puts a copy of a non-legendary creature into play. It gains haste, and you sack it into turn. I'm not going to try to go through all the Kiki Jiki combos because it's not possible. Like, every creature with a comes into play or leaves play ability is amazing with Kiki Jiki. Of course, there are the creatures, when they come into play, they untap it, and then it becomes ridiculous. It's just infinite, and you do things. But anyway, Kiki Jiki's amazing. It's an awful lot of mana for a 2/2, but generally the turn you play it is most of the time. I say most, probably half the time. That's the last turn of the game. And big secret, everybody knows it. Kumano, Master Yamabushi. 3 generic red for a 4/4. Now, for 2 mana, he deals 1 damage to target creature or player. If a creature would be dealt damage this way, it would be put into a graveyard, you remove it from the game. If I'm not mistaken, I think I put in all of the Death Touch granting equipment for him. That way you can just spend 2 mana, deal 1 damage, and it exiles the creature because it dies and then he exiles them. So thanks to Death Touch, they just die from 1. And if I'm not mistaken, I also put in some infect granting so that you can hit players only 10 times and win like that. So that was how I built him. Not sure how everybody else did, but decent card. Lava Spike. We were super excited when we got this, and it's the very first comparison was, oh, it's a lightning bolt. It is not. I promise you, not a lightning bolt. Although it's good, it's not lightning bolt. 1 mana sorcery to deal 3 to a player. Now, the versatility of Lightning Bolt is Lightning Bolt is an amazing card. It may be the best single red mana card ever made. But you know what? Even in our format, that's just not enough. Lava Spike in Commander is just not. I mean, you're out of card. And our even though we have 100 of them, our card slots are very, very precious. And just to deal 3 damage to a player is not enough for us. It's not. We need more. However, that being said, there are decks that want this. Very low to the ground, storm decks. I don't know that I have actually, because this is arcane, I don't know that I have actually spliced into arcane since Kamigawa was standard legal. I don't think I've ever done it since then, and then only probably because I was playing limited of some sort. Mind Blaze. Here's a sorcery. 5 generic and a red, so 6 CMC. Better win us the game, right? Name a non-land card and choose a number greater than 0. So we can't choose 0. Target player reveals his or her library. If that library contains exactly the chosen number of the named card, it deals 8 damage. Huh. So, in our format, this is a 6 mana, 8 damage spell. Because we're going to, by the time that you get the mana to cast this card, you kind of have an idea as to what style deck your opponent's playing. And you can name the obvious include in the deck that you don't see on the board. Yeah, they may have it in their hand. That may suck. But you know what? If you choose Soul Ring, there's a good chance, especially if you can meta that junk and you see that they've got a commander deck commander, number one, they own a Soul Ring. That's a safe assumption at that point. They could have traded for it or bought it singly, but most of the time, if they've got a commander edition commander, they probably have a Soul Ring. And people don't really hold their Soul Rings in their hand unless they are, planning on destroying all artifacts or whatnot. But so generally, if you don't see a Soul Ring, it's kind of a safe bet, or a dual land of some sort, or whatever. As I hate to call them, auto include cards, the staples, if you will. But anyway, Mind Blaze is a card, and while 6 mana for 8 damage, there again, it only deals it to a player. It's not very versatile, but hey, you get to peek at their deck. Meosion of Infinite Rage. This was actually part of a deck I played back then. For 10 mana, 7 generic, and then 3 red, 7/4. The 2 lines about divinity counters, and you can remove the divinity counter to Geddon. That's right, destroy all lands. Now, here's one that you probably don't want to use more than once. Because I think this, if you do manage to proliferate this and get a second activation out of it, 7, 8 turns later, I think you're probably having to buy new tires. Because I think your friends are just cutting yours. But that's a real feel-bad moment right there. I used it in decks that I never wanted to cast it because of cards that'll be the Blazing Shoal in the next set. We'll get to that. Ryusei's the Red Dragon Spirit Legend. 5 generic and a red for a 5/5 flyer. And when it's put into a graveyard, are you noticing a theme here? Deals 5 damage to each creature without flying. Well, that's pretty simple. We just play with all flyers in our deck, right? It's a dragon spirit. I can play with dragons. I can play with spirits. I can play with anything. He don't really care about his own tribe. So I just build all flyers and then ways to bring him back from the dead and don't really care if he dies or not. And have probably ways to sack him. Yeah, seems good. Shimatsu, the Blood Cloaked. Shimatsu. Doesn't that sound like one of those massage chairs? Anyway, 3 generic and a red for a demon spirit legend. It's a 0/0. Not to worry though. It comes into play. You sacrifice any number of permanents, and he comes into play with that many counters on it. Now, I do a lot of multiplier cards in my Warp World deck. Warp World is kind of the sorcery commander of that deck. It's the whole deck's based around Warp World. So here, I might do a lot of similar mono red multipliers, where like that little goblin that brings another little goblin token with it. Siege Gang Commander, which brings 3 tokens with it. So you're out 1 card, but you have 4 permanents with Siege Gang. And that way you can effectively only, if you sacrificed all 4 of those, you got 4 counters off of 1 card, essentially. So that's probably how I'm going down with Shimatsu. Soul Blast. 3 generic, 3 red. As an additional cost, you sacrifice all the creatures you control, i.e., you're playing this in response to a board wipe. And it deals damage equal to target creature or player equal to the total number of sacrificed creatures. So that's how I've used it before. I don't know that I've cast it more than a handful of times in its lifespan, but I was like hardcore red aggro, and you get to the point to where you're aggroed out, and you have 6 open mana because and somebody will wipe the board. Now, there is the trick. Holding up 6 mana. But most of the time in red, that's not a problem because, it's red kind of doesn't have a long-term plan, so it kind of uses all of its resources quick, and, you draw your Soul Blast, it's just kind of chilling in your hand anyway. Through the Breach. Now, this got a reprint here recently. I think it was UMA. 4 generic and a red for an arcane instant. Put a creature card from your hand into play. It gains haste and sack it at end of turn. Of course, everybody loves Emrakul. Big Emrakul is banned in our format. But you know what? Little Emrakul's still balling. And that's not the only card out there that's amazing. Through the Breach is... it's an all-star in every format that it's legal in. I mean, ours is... it probably sees less play in Commander than the others simply because we have, it's a 1-of format, and we have such a low chance. I mean, there's, a 1% chance of drawing each card? Well, slightly better because we start with 99, and then we draw 7. So, each card you draw increases the odds of the next card. Math is fun. Zozu the Punisher. Now, I built Zozu, and it is ridiculously oppressive. Generic red for a 2/2 legendary goblin warrior that doesn't care about goblins or warriors. Whenever a land comes into play, that land's controller takes 2. Now, just for those new to the format that happen to find this video, this is not commander damage. If your commander deals, taps to deal damage or deals damage to an effect, that is not commander damage. That will matter once we get into Betrayers and see Hidetsugu, but it's not, commander damage has to be combat damage. And the reason why commander damage exists is to negate the life gain aspect, because this is a slow format typically, and it is very easy to gain a inordinate amount of life. And you can build decks to, okay, I'm at 1,000 life, I don't really care. Sure, I don't block your 30 damage, I'll just gain 400 next turn, whatever. It kind of makes those decks, without the commander damage, we would see a ton more life gain decks to just stall. And then that one card that says, was it Test of Endurance? Oh, anyway, I built Zozu as, I think I'm encouraging everybody to play lands. Everybody draws cards, and then I think there's Dingus Egg, so when the land goes as well. Yeah, play your fetches, folks. Azusa Lost But Seeking. I love Azusa. Played her last night. All almost to my detriment. I won that game, but I'll be honest with you, I almost lost because I was greedy. 2 generic and a green. For a 1/2 legendary human monk, you may play an additional 2 lands on each of your turns. Now, I play with something like 50 something lands in the deck, which is, yeah, insane. But the way I have the deck built, if you don't continue making those land drops, you feel like you're losing value. So, you're probably going to land go for the first 2 turns, and then once you play your 3rd land, you play her and play 2 more. Suddenly, when you untap with her on turn 4, you're now on turn 6, and everybody else is on turn 4. And of course, we're running all of the other play extra land cards, and it can get out of hand quickly with landfall creatures, and even just stuff like Blanchwood Armor is insane. You throw a Blanchwood Armor on Azusa, and they got to start worrying about commander damage. One-shotting commander damage. Whew. Bakota Gardener. 2 mana for a 2/1 human monk. Tap. You can put a land card from your hand into play. If you got 10 or more lands, you flip him into Dokai, Weaver of Life. So you spend 6 and tap to get an XX green elemental token, where X is the number of lands you control. Mighty good. Dosing the Falling Leaf. Now, you want to talk about anti-control. Your blue player does not want this to resolve. Generic green for a 2/2 legendary human monk. Players can only play spells during their turns. That's right. My turn is my turn, and you're not. Now, that doesn't stop them from playing abilities. So, there's that. But it does shut down a lot of counter magic. Glimpse of Nature. I got my first glimpse of nature just like a couple weeks ago. I think I showed y'all that in the pickups video. That I haven't done one this week because I think I've only picked up 1 card this week. Hey, guys, I got a Michael's Atlantis. Yay. Anyway, it's a single green mana sorcery. I'm glad they didn't make this arcane because it is very reprintable. Not that they reprinted a bunch, but, hey. Whenever you play a creature spell this turn, you draw a card. While this is not there's more of a C EDH feel here because we have a lot of permanents that have this on there, with especially the new Elf and Soul of Harvest, things like that. We have permanent versions of this, but for a 1 mana, 1 turn ability, it can net you several cards. And to be honest with you, even if it only nets you 2, you're still up. Right? Heartbeat of Spring. Green's Mana Flare. Whenever player taps a land for mana, player adds 1 mana of that type to their mana pool for the exact same cost. 2 generic and a green, as where Mana Flare was 2 generic and a red. Actually, to be honest with you, the effect makes more sense in green. It really does. Glad to have it, though, because a lot of the mana multiplication decks, that's how I built Zakama, was just a stupid amount of mana doublers. And, then you got a fully loaded shotgun right there. Iname Life Aspect. The green part of the black one. And you'll see how they work together. For 4 generic green for 4/4 legendary spirit. It's put into a graveyard from play. You may remove it from the game or exile it now. If you do, return any number of spirits from your graveyard to your hand. So the other one put them into your graveyard and from your library, and this one puts them back into your hand. So you see how they were kind of encouraging you to build that green-black, which was kind of neat since this block was right before Ravnica, which gave us the Golgari. It gave us the 10 guilds, but Ravnica proper had the Golgari. So I like how they kind of bled the overall, and they do that with a lot of sets. They will, hey, this works with the last block, and this other thing works with the next block, which is kind of neat. Jugen, I spent my life calling it Hugin. Either way, it's the Rising Star. 3 generic green, green, green for a 5/5 flying legendary dragon spirit. This is the last one. And when it's put into a graveyard from play, you distribute 5 1/1 counters among any number of creatures you control. Now, this is a beauty. They've done nothing but print more supplemental 1/1 counter cards, and it's a huge archetype now. Now, granted, he is probably not at the helm of most of those decks. Other creatures are, but either I have or I will build him, and it will be all about the 1/1 counter shenanigans. So, Kodama of the North Tree, 2 generic and 3 green for a 6/4 trample, and it has Shroud. That's what I'm talking about. That is it having 6 power and trample. Very, very useful for all of the Power 5 Matters decks that were kind of Alara based, and the Ferocious decks, because you're already at 6 power there by itself, and all of those Power 4. It's green has the most creatures that power is greater than the casting cost. So, and when you get to tack on abilities like Trample and Shroud, it's really good. Kodama the South Tree. Here is, power equals CMC. 2 generic green green for a 4/4. Whenever you play a spirit or arcane spell, each other creature you control gains 1/1 and trample to end of turn. So obviously we're going to want to pack our deck full of spirits and arcanes and, creatures. Probably spirits that are green, and have that be its own kind of linear theme. Kodama's Reach. Now, this card is amazing. The whole reason why Cultivate exists is because of this card. This was the first version, 2 generic and a green for an arcane sorcery. To search your library for two basics. Put one in your hand, one to play tapped. It's such a great ability, but it's not very reprintable because it's arcane. And it references a character in Kamigawa story. Character, place. It's Kamigawa. It's practically the same thing. Character and place. But so eventually they did Cultivate to get, a reprintable version that not arcane. That's why we have the 2 of those that are so close together. Meosian of Life's Web. This is a 9-mana Meosian, 8/8 green one. Has the 2 divinity counter lines, and when you remove a counter on it, you put any number of cards from your hand into play, which is awesome, especially this being an 8/8, because that way we have all of those cards that let you draw cards equal to a creature's power. But here's the problem. You're going to want to bust down fatties when you take off that divinity counter, and by just doing it, you stand to clog your deck up with a lot of, of course, you're going to have both ends of the spectrum. This one's going to be fun to build. It really will, because this one, I've got to have that divinity counter. Nature's Will. 2 generic, green, green for an enchantment. Whenever one or more creatures you control deals combat damage to a player, tap all their lands and untap all yours. Whoa, baby. I'm telling you. Okay, so now we have a post-combat main phase with all my mana. Appreciate it. Snakes were a huge creature type, and if I'm not mistaken, there were different tribes of snakes. I didn't really follow the story that much in Kamigawa, but Sachi, daughter of Sashiro, 2 generic green green for a 1/3 snake shaman legend. She gives other snakes you control +0/+1, and shamans you control have tapped to add double green. Now, I'm in the process of building her now. She is almost completed. Tribal shamans is how I went with it. Secure Tribe Elder. Speaking of a shaman, this is the card. Here again is a very popular card. You can block, sacrifice, and go get your land. However, it's not real reprintable in anything but supplemental sets because it is Secure Tribe. The name is kind of place dependent, so that's why it sees printing in supplementary sets. Sashiro, 4 generic green for a 3/4 legendary Snake Monk. Other snakes you control get +2/+2, and when a snake you control deals combat damage to a player, you get to draw a card. Tribal snakes, anyone? I am straight up playing with Snake Basket. Shisato, Whispering Hunter. 3 generic and a green. At the beginning of your upkeep, sacrifice a snake. What? Snake Warrior. Whenever it deals combat damage to a player, that player skips their next untap step. This is a green card, y'all, that's making people skip their untap steps. I like it. Now, obviously, we're going to have to be playing with a certain amount of snake element in mono green. I know the Ophimancer we think of and stuff like that, but stuff to make continual snake tokens to get full value out of this. Sosuke, Son of Sashiro. 2 generic green for a 3/4 legendary Snake Warrior. Other snakes get +1 to the power, and whenever a warrior you can control does combat damage to a creature, destroy that creature at the end of combat. Now, Sosuke saw some inclusion in a few builds of the General Tazri, the 5-color warrior guy, because of that last ability. I'm not sure if I have built him specifically, but I will go, tribal mono green warriors. Time of Need. This is a legendary tutor. Now, legendary creature tutor. It's not a legendary card. So, there are a lot of decks that want this and a lot of decks that don't. I mean, Sisei doesn't really need it. I think I may have one in there just for flavor reasons because Legend is the theme. But it doesn't need to be in there because she taps for that ability, so whatevs, But it is a good card. There are times when you run a couple of other legends besides your commander in the deck and you just really want that whatever, We're into artifacts now. 3 generic, Emi Statue. Players can untap more than one artifact during their untap steps. If I'm correct, I feel like this was... yeah, we're sorry for Mirrodin. Here's something that tries to help a little bit. Journeyer's Kite. Oh my God. I have the worst story here. It is just terrible. It's me. It's me. It's all me. Journeyer's Kite is a 2 generic mana artifact. You spend 3, tap it, search your library for a basic land card, reveal it, put it into your hand, and shuffle your library. Okay. This card came out. I think I got it very early on in the first month or so that Kamigawa came out, and I read it, and I lost my mind. I said, oh my God, this is so good. It is amazing. It is too good. So I instantly got 4 of them. Nobody could understand why I was so stoked over this card. Jammed them in a deck. I played these jokers for the entire time that Kamigawa was legal and standard. The last month Kamigawa was legal, I activated Journeyer's Kite, and my opponent said, whoa. It doesn't work that way, Brian. For 2 years, I had put the card straight into play. I just got so excited, I just didn't bother finishing reading the card, and I was like, 3 mana tap? Rapid growth? What? Yeah. So, Journeyer's Kite is good for landfall decks because you run out of cards in hand. Yeah, you're only getting a basic, but if you don't care if landfall is your thing, it's still good. It's still a great card. It's nowhere near as busted as I thought it was. And I felt horrible. Thank God I didn't actually win anything during that time because I would have felt real bad. Konda's Banner. Now, if you were playing Tribal Commander, you need this card. 2 generic mana equipment. So this was where they said, okay, equipment's going to be evergreen. We're going to have it all the time. It was a success, which a lot of times they try things and they're like, yeah, hey, we'll just keep it. It can only be attached to a legendary creature. We don't have a problem with that because we come to the game with a legendary creature. Creatures that share a color with it get 1, and creatures that share a type with it get 1. I'm not sure if I've got a Konda's Banner in Griffins or not. I probably do because I have so many Anthem type effects in there, but obviously I'm going to have to run it in Konda, right? Long Forgotten Gohei. Now, as I said, the Spirit and Arcane thing were a theme, and this is kind of, trying to help that theme. Heck, this was reprinted. I spent the big money for a Master's Pack, and this was my rare. Yeah. Anyway, 3 generic mana for an artifact. Arcane spells you play cost 1 less to play, and spirits you control get 1/1. Orochi Hatchery. For double X mana, it comes into play with X charge counters on it. 5 and tap to get a snake for each charge counter on it. You don't sack it. You get to, just keep doing it. So, my question is, what's the magic casting cost here? What do you want? I mean, obviously, we want it to be as big as possible, but do you get greedy and hold it in your hand? Because we're probably playing that green sacrifice a snake chick as our commander anyway, right? So, if we make X equals 3, the card costs 6, and we're spending 5 to get 3 snakes. Some part of me wants, if I'm spending 5 mana every turn, some part of me wants to make 5 snakes. But that call initial investment of 10 mana. So, which, I mean, it's not hard to do, but if that's our commander and we need to start sacking snakes, proliferate's a thing. Green proliferate deck, maybe? I don't know. Rito Lantern. 2 generic for an artifact, 3 mana : put target card in a graveyard on the bottom of its owner's library. Now, I play this in the Grenzo Dungeon Warden deck, and I think everybody does. Good card. Ooh, you want to talk about powerhouse uncommons that changed the game forever. The top did it. It's super hard to kill. A generic mana artifact. You spend 1 to look at the top 3 cards of your life. I don't know why I'm reading Sensei's Divining Top. We all know what this does. There's so many cards it makes better. I don't think it's too powerful. I think it's right where it needs to be. It does enable a lot of things. It solves a lot of problems. It creates a lot of problems. But it's a good, solid card. And I feel like you can tell, since they put it at uncommon, they had probably underestimated this card. Tenza, Godo's Maw, his personal weapon. 3 generic for a legendary equipment. Equipped creature gets 1/1. As long as it's legendary, it gets another +2/+2. As long as it's red, it gets trample. So if it's Godo, essentially, it gets 3/3 and trample, and it equips for 1. Now, any red legendary creature can benefit from Tenza. So, if you're running, I don't know, Brian Stoutarm, I don't know why I picked that one, I guess because I looked up and saw the deck, but it works. Beseiju, Who Shelters All, another amazing land, legendary land. It does come into play tapped. You tap it to pay 2 life to get 1 mana. It's a generic. It's a colorless now. But if it was spent to play an instant or sorcery, it can't be countered by spells or abilities. So that's amazing. It really is for when you absolutely got to get something through. Beseiju helps you there. Iganjo Castle. Legendary white land. It taps for a white. It comes into play as normal. You spend a white and tap it to prevent the next 2 damage. It will be dealt to target legendary creature this turn. I am running this in my version of Sisei, just because, she's a 2/2, as I remember. Ijano's decent. Forbidden Orchard. Man alive, this is an amazing card. Now, this enabled a lot of weird stuff, too. This card, y'all remember I covered Oath of Druids way back? This card set it on fire because you could, Oath of Druids, you wanted to play on turn 2, but an opponent had to have a creature, and had to have more creatures than you did for you to activate it. So the popular thing to do was land, go, my turn 2, Forbidden Orchard, tap them both, give you a dude, I get Oath of Druids, and then we see what happens on turn 3. Yeah. But for our purposes, this is really good. Anytime a land produces a mana of any color, it does not come into play tapped, doesn't even deal damage to you, and you can pass it. You can play kind of the politic game here. Hey, I see old boy's beating you up. You need a blocker. Here you go. I helped you out. Remember that. Hall of the Bandit Lord. Now, this one does come into play tapped. You tap it and pay 3 life to get 1 colorless to your pool. But if it's spent on a creature, that creature gains haste. So a lot of your creatures that have tap abilities will want the Hall of the Bandit Lord, especially if you can cast your commander and do its thing right then. Yeah. Minamo's School at Water's Edge. Now, this one is a baller. It comes in as normal, taps for a blue. It's a legendary land. And blue, tap it to untap target legendary permanent. So this is like at home with our format. If you're playing Commander and blue is in your color identity, you probably want Minamo for the deck. Just, if nothing else, bad vigilance. Yeah, it's really good. And then you've got things like, I'm going to untap my draw 3 guy. I'm going to untap my counterspell guy. I'm going to untap, yeah. Okina Temple of the Grandfathers. I'm sorry, Temple to the Grandfathers. It's a legendary green land. It comes into play normal. You tap it to add a green to your pool, or you spend a green and tap it. Target legendary creature gets 1/1 to end turn. Also running this in Sisay because my Sisay deck is a very high percentage point of legend. Now, I will obviously also run this in like Reki or whatnot. It's just a decent. Sometimes you need that extra 1/1 to live through combat or to live through a spell damage or whatever. And even if you don't actively use it, because it's on the card, you've used it. Your opponents have taken that into consideration. It's an onboard trick that people don't want to fall victim to onboard tricks. I know, nobody does. And so they'll play around it, which also has its own set of advantages. Shinka the Bloodsoaked Keep is a legendary red land. You taps for a red mana. And you spend a red and tap it. Target legendary creature gain first strike. Here again, if you're playing red in Commander, you probably want this. It's pretty decent. Next, we have the black one, Shizo Death Storehouse. Yeah, there was a cycle here. Legendary land that's black. It taps to add a black. And black and tap. Target legendary creature gains fear, which is, a pretty good evasion ability. Especially a lot of the times when we have commanders that already have flying or some other version of evasion, to give them 2 forms of evasion kind of makes you think about doing a commander damage win. Untadaki, the Cloudkeeper, legendary land. It does come into play tapped. You tap it and pay 2 life to get 2 colorless to your pool, but you can only use this to play legendary spells. Now, we all play legendary spells because we all have a commander of some sort. And, there's some decks that want this more than others. And that is what I've got for Champions of Kamigawa. Wow, that's an hour 13. I think this is the longest set review I've done since Dominara. Or Dominera. Whatever. Anyway, I do appreciate y'all watching. Y'all let me know what you think. Going through every legendary creature it's a biggin'. So, I guess we will see y'all tomorrow.